Hello everyone, welcome to Anime No Me, and thank you for joining us for another One Piece video. Along his journey to become Pirate King, Luffy has come across multiple enemies that were a great challenge for him to defeat or at least take out of their position. And many of these enemies, despite having fought Luffy, demonstrated that they might be able to change. So as we enter the final saga of One Piece, we gotta know that there is gonna be a battle approaching, multiple parties are gonna be after the One Piece treasure, and it's also likely that many enemies from the past could become Straw Hat allies in the future. And everyone is gonna have to choose which side that they want to take on, the one of the world government and Im-sama, or whoever our main antagonist is, and of course, who's gonna side with Luffy's crew and that of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. So in today's video, we're gonna talk about the possible enemies of the Straw Hats that could end up becoming allies in the future, what might motivate them to make an alliance with Luffy, and how they might be important to Luffy and his overall success as we head into this final saga. But before we dive into the video, if you're new to the channel, or even if you've watched a bunch of our videos, we'd be absolutely honored if you'd leave us a like and even subscribe and maybe leave us a comment letting us know what you thought of the video. It really helps us out, especially with that old YouTube algorithm, and it keeps motivating us to make more content. And if you'd like to help out the channel in a bigger way, consider sharing this video or another one of your favorites with a friend. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So my friends, let's start with a character that many are waiting to return, the one known as the ancient deity of Skypiea, and of course we're talking about Enel. Now Luffy and Enel completely despise each other, and they still may in fact see each other as enemies. Now Enel dislikes Luffy for tarnishing his self-confidence and really ruining the fact that he had a good thing going in Skypiea and showing that everybody that he was not in fact a god, and ultimately interfered with his plans. Luffy, for his part, hates Enel for his arrogance and his intentions to destroy all of Skypiea as well as hurting his friends. Luffy and the rest of the Straw Hats came to Skypiea via the knockup stream and quickly befriended many of the Skypieans that they ran into, and he was told about Enel and how he was the god of the island. But the two really didn't meet until the very end of the arc. Luffy confronted Enel on the top of his ship and fought him to save Nami. And even though Nami and the rest of her crew ended up being saved, Luffy chose to persist against this supposed god, and with the help of Nami and a few others, he managed to defeat him, saving all of Skypiea. Luffy, of course, caught Enel's attention because he was breaking his country's laws. However, Enel's extreme arrogance meant that he didn't necessarily hate or dislike Luffy, well, at least initially, as he believed himself to be too godlike to care about something as low as Luffy and his crew. Instead, he chose to make a game out of his shenanigans and started playing his own game. However, Enel's attitude towards Luffy changed when he proved his prediction of the outcome of their game to be wrong, and this led to a confrontation between the two, and Enel soon realized that Luffy is naturally immune to his electricity powers, unlike everybody else he'd ever encountered. This brought Enel a frantic panic as justification for his arrogance and some sense of superiority, and after an intense battle with Luffy, Enel was eventually defeated. Of course, after Luffy did defeat him, Enel still denied it, stating that he could never be defeated, and he then decided not to pursue Luffy and the Straw Hats, and instead chose to continue with his original plan to go to the Fairy Verth, which turned out to be the moon. Through an amazing cover story, we saw how Enel then arrived on the moon and found some really interesting robots, and that could be the reason why Enel is going to return to Earth, to look for Vegapunk to learn more about these robots that he found. If Enel were to then run into the Straw Hats, because of course Vegapunk is gonna be with Luffy and company, this may cause a reason, or at least a catalyst, to unite them to achieve a common goal. Now, he might still detest Luffy, but a powerful ally like Enel would be hard to refuse, because you're gonna need somebody like him and many other powerful fighters to take on this big bad that exists at the end of our saga. Next, let's talk about Capone Bege, the captain of the Fire Tank Pirates and a member of the Worst Generation. He was originally an antagonist to Luffy, but then chose to side with the Straw Hats when he realizes that their goals against Big Mom were aligned. Since then, Bege has proven to be an extremely useful ally to Luffy and his crew throughout the whole Cake Island arc. Bege found the Straw Hat captain to be reckless and exhausting, but still came to respect him. Luffy, although he may have disliked Bege for his actions against him and his friends, he grew to like him more anyway. The first meeting between these two captains occurred on Sabri Archipelago, when he became extremely angry with the Straw Hat captain after he punched a world noble, and this brought down the wrath of Admiral Kizaru to the island. Following the time skip, Bege made himself an enemy of the Straw Hats and Luffy when, as a member of the Big Mom Pirates, he had traveled to Zou to take Sanji to be married. Having succeeded, Luffy grew angry at his actions and opted to infiltrate Big Mom's territory to retrieve his friend, and more importantly, the cook that would make it possible for him to become the king of the pirates. After hearing out Bege and his plan, Luffy reluctantly agreed to ally himself with him, and due to Jinbei's insistence, Luffy ultimately changed his mind. And besides, knowing that Bege's goal was eventually to defeat defeat Big Mom, this made Luffy trust him all the more. Through this alliance, their relationship was improved greatly. Bege sympathized with the Straw Hats, especially with his wife, Charlotte Chiffon, and he felt indebted to them for helping her sister on Thriller Bark. As a result of this, Bege became an extremely valuable ally during the whole Cake Island arc, at multiple points protecting them and refusing to hand them over to the Emperor or her crew. At the conclusion of the whole Cake Island arc, Bege was still angered when Luffy was falsely credited as the mastermind behind the plot to assassinate Big Mom. So since then, they've kind of become enemies again because they're ultimately pursuing the same goal. But because he's a character of great importance, it's likely that in the future, Bege might still ally himself with Luffy to help him find the One Piece and eventually take down the big bad that is looming in the shadows. The next individual on our list is Trafalgar Law, and he's the captain of the Heart Pirates, or at least he was the captain since we know that he was recently defeated by Teach. Now, with his escape with Beppo, we don't know where he's off to next, but during the confrontation in Wano, we saw multiple times where Law and Luffy really did work incredibly well together, and ultimately they were successful in bringing down the two Yonko that they had come there to defeat. Once we discover the location of where Beppo's taking Law, we know that there's going to be a strong possibility that Law will end up teaming up with Luffy again to help bring down Teach and also help Luffy find the One Piece treasure. From quite an early stage in their journey, Law has proved to be a great ally for Luffy. Now, despite his callous behavior towards him, Law really seems to like Luffy, and he also seems to be much more accepting of Luffy's lead and also watching him carry out plans, and even goes as far as tolerating the Straw Hat Captain taking the initiative, even though it might annoy him from time to time. Law's first impressions of Luffy were positive because he smiled when he saw Luffy punch a celestial dragon, and he even decided to brave attacks from the Marines and Admirals to rescue Luffy and Jinbei when they tried to escape from Marineford, and shortly thereafter, he tended to their injuries. And this isn't the only time Law has put our Straw Hat Captain back together. Eventually, Law came to respect Luffy enough to tolerate some of his decisions, and with Doflamingo defeated, Law was extremely grateful that Luffy was able to help carry out his revenge. When it came time to face Kaido, Law chose to fight alongside Luffy again, as they had done so against Doflamingo, and the two worked extremely well in their various battles in Onigashima, though Law was still irritated when Luffy constantly bossed him around, trying to remind him that he wasn't one of his subordinates. So once we find out what exactly is going to happen to Law, we could absolutely see a future alliance between these two incredible pirates once again. But this time, it's going to be a battle with even higher stakes than Onigashima and even that of Marineford, because this is a battle that will change the entire world. The next character who's already shown to be interested in Luffy and his crew is of course Jewelry Bonney, the captain of the Bonney Pirates, and she too is a member of the Worst Generation, just like Luffy and Bege and even Law. Another deeper connection that Bonney has with the crew is that she's the daughter of Bartholomew Kuma, and this is revolutionary, that in multiple occasions shown to be a true friend of the Straw Hats, not only allowing them to get back to the Sunny because he protected them, but let's not forget the fact that he sent every crew member to the precise place they needed to go so that they could get stronger over the time skip. And it's these things that have allowed Bonney's trust and respect for Luffy to increase all the more. Even though Bonney and the crew never interacted before the time skip, following the time skip, Bonney praised Luffy for defeating Doflamingo, finding it incredible that the Straw Hat Captain was able to defeat the Lord and leader of the underworld. After arriving near Egghead Island, Luffy ended up saving Bonney from drowning after she had escaped from a mecha shark's mouth, and she thanked him for saving her, but reminded him that they were still rivals. Despite being so-called rivals, there's still a great respect between Luffy and Bonney, and Bonney doesn't even show a great rivalry that she has with Luffy or his companions. She only became a pirate to find out what had happened to her father and discover the mystery behind why he became a cyborg. We also have to know that because Luffy and the Straw Hats are helping her to find and help Kuma, this is going to make Bonney want to become an ally of the Straw Hats in the great conflict that is yet to come. Now, although Bonney may not be as physically powerful as others, she's still extremely skilled and has multiple ways to defeat her enemies through the power of her Devil Fruit, which is capable of making her targets older or even younger. Another interesting ally that could be a pirate that would team up with the Straw Hats would in fact be Gekko Moria. Now, he's still alive and currently being held captive by Teach on the pirate island. Now, the two met when Luffy stumbled across Moria's ship by chance and became enemies once Luffy found out what Moria was doing to the people he captured. Now, there's no other way to say it. The two really do dislike each other. Moria viewed Luffy as a rookie who is naive about the reality of the world and was a headache in his plans. Luffy dislikes Moria for taking people's shadows and trapping them on his ship. But Luffy still sees Moria as a rival, as he too desires to become the Pirate King. But this only fueled Luffy's motivation to fight and defeat him. And although they might have been great enemies in the past, currently that hatred might have ceased to exist because there are much bigger problems on the horizon. This is due to the fact that Moria was captured by Teach, and his goals of becoming the Pirate King were completely shattered by the pirate. And this could make Moria change his mind, wanting revenge on Teach because he took the life of one of his companions after having captured him. So Gekko Moria, at least temporarily in the future, may end up throwing his lot in with the Straw Hats just for the goal to take down Teach and get his revenge. Now, although this alliance may seem to be practically impossible to happen, we have to remember that in the world of One Piece, there are many unpredictable events that happen, especially in the case of CP0 uniting with the Straw Hats just because they needed to take out the Seraphim. So these alliances by interest can happen. Finally, let's talk about Eustass Kid, the pirate who has the lowest chance of joining the Straw Hats in the future. Now, we recently saw that Shanks managed to completely obliterate Kid's ship along with Kid and the rest of his crew. So his dreams have been completely destroyed by the Yonko, who in addition to defeating his entire crew, was still able to take the information about the road poneglyphs that Kid managed to get in Wano. If somehow Kid is still alive and survived the massacre caused by Shanks' crew, there's still that small possibility that he'll join Luffy in the future to take revenge on the red-haired pirate, who is also currently possibly Luffy's enemy, as both now have the same goal of finding the One Piece. Now, despite their rivalry, and they indeed have a rivalry, Kid has a certain respect and admiration for Luffy because of his infamous reputation for causing chaos wherever he goes. And the two met just like Bege and Bonney on Sabaody Archipelago, where they were both seen as members of the worst generation. Kid was extremely excited when he learned that Straw Hat Luffy was on Sabaody. He was looking forward to seeing him do something crazy, and he got his very wish when he witnessed Luffy fall into the auction house and punch a world noble, Charlos, something that even he didn't expect him to do. In the ensuing chaos, he decided to work with Luffy and Law to fight the Marines before they went their separate ways. The duo reunited 2 years later in Wano after Kid and Luffy were captured by the Emperor Kaido. Now, despite their many disagreements, they eventually formed an alliance to defeat Kaido, with Kid joining Luffy and Law on Onigashima. And although their personalities are quite opposites of each other, Kid has a certain respect for the Straw Hat Captain and is often impressed by his numerous feats and antics. So as long as he survived, this means that there's still a small chance that Kid will team up with the Straw Hats again if he's still alive. So with Shanks now becoming an active enemy, Luffy's gonna have to face him at some point in his journey. And with Kid's help, this fight could become even bigger and even more pivotal in the future of One Piece. So with all that said, my friends, we'd now love to know what you think about it. What are some other enemies that you think might throw their lot in with the Straw Hats? And what are some others that no matter how bad it may look, they just won't help our Straw Hat crew? And also, what do you think Shanks' game is now that he's taken out Kid? Do you think he truly is an enemy of Luffy's? Or is he trying to protect the One Piece treasure from something we haven't yet learned about? Let us know what you think about that in the comments below. So as we wrap up our video for the day, we'd like to thank you all so much for watching the video, especially those of you who've made it here to the very end. Be sure you comment on any themes or ideas that you'd like to see in future videos. And also, since you made it this far, give us a like and hit that red subscribe button before you head out to take on the rest of your day. I hope to see you all in our next video. Let's keep sailing this giant sea together. Take care.